Prince Reza Pahlavi, for many years, did not declare himself to be the leader of anything until the Iranian people came in high numbers and asked him to be the leader. He accepted the leadership of the transition period, but not the revolution. And eventually, he also accepted the leadership of the revolution. So, the revolution is phase one. That's the phase that we are in right now. Then, once the Islamic Republic gets toppled, he's going to be the leader of the transition period. And he's going to bring about the conditions for us to be able to have multiple elections. First, a referendum to choose whether going to be a monarchy or not. Then the people who will be writing the constitution, and eventually an election for the parliament and all of that, right? So for that third period, he has not declared himself the post-transition period when the election is over. When we have elections, we have a proper government, not a transitional government. He has not accepted any role for that, right? Because for that, the Iranian people will have to choose their leaders via elections. So this is important to know, because a lot of people are going around right now trying to make it seem like Prince Reza Pahlavi is a dictator because he has self-declared himself without elections to be the leader. Well, only for the phases where you cannot have elections. That's what you have to understand. He's very, very democratic. For the phase that we could actually have at an election, he has not declared himself to be a leader of anything. He's letting that to be the decision of the Iranian people. Yeah, you cannot have election in the middle of a revolution. All right, so that was it. That was my point. So Al Ace or AI, is that Al or AI? Can't tell.
It's Al.
Al, okay, all right.
Yes. Thank you, Armin. I have maybe it's a simple question, but I think kind of a practical one. I live in a pretty liberal city here in Europe, and there's a fair amount of Iranians here, and I'd like to approach some people at work or people I come across. What's a good way to actually make sure that they're, against the regime? I remember checking the website, the mercenary website that you shared a few days back, and there were a couple people in the city that I live in. So I'm just kind of curious, what's a good way to kind of ask them where they kind of stand?
Just their position on Pahlavi. That's the best way.
The people that I meet, like there's a few people at work, for example, that I'd be interested to reach out to and just kind of show support, but also maybe not reveal too much in that sense without kind of feeling them out first.
Oh, okay. Say, Joe, you don't want to piss them off, though, right? Like, if in case they're not on the right side, because the easiest way is to say Javid Shah and see what their reaction is, and if they welcome that, that means that they're with the revolution, they're with the Iranian people, and if they hate that, then they're the enemy, to say it bluntly. But if they're co-workers and you don't really want to piss them off, then just ask them what their position of Pahlavi is instead of just saying Javid Shah and saying what their reaction is. But if you want to be more conservative and careful.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, with coworkers, I'd probably go with the second option there.
Second one.
Yeah,
we check their position on Israel as well, but honestly, Pahlavi covers that as well. So if they support Pahlavi, it's very, very, very likely that they also support Israel. So you don't need to double check that.
Yeah, makes sense. Right. Thank you.
Or at least they're not anti-Israel.
Jeffrey, go ahead. Why don't you chime in on that?
Well, I was going to say that, that's if they're going to be open and honest with their true intentions. If a bad guy knows that that's like you're trying to flesh him out, maybe they just say that to hide what they really think. I had a quick question. If anybody here, particularly you, BT, because you're an admin, you've been an admin for a while. Given that the Mullah regime is trying to sit there and flood in any number of weapons and or terrorist elements into Israel, as they're doing their version of shaping operations, right? Trying to put their pieces in place. And Ozzy, he's a police officer in Israel. Has anybody heard from him? Is he okay? Have you heard from Ozzy?
Oh, Ozzy's in Israel. Yeah. I messaged him.
Some post in the group. He made a post in the group, so at some point he stopped showing up to the discussions, but he made a post in the group a couple of days after that. So I don't think he spontaneously had a heart attack. I think he got called up to something.
Yeah, we should check in on him.
I'll go ahead and make a comment in the side chat rather than here.
Okay.
That is the end of the list I currently have. Does anyone have anything else for the moment?
Yeah, guys, feel free to raise your hands and give me your opinions and your questions or anything. If not, I have another point. Jeffrey wants to say something.
So I wanted to actually comment on the point you were making on Goldie right before you came in here, which it's very true. If you think of like mullah capability, it's true from a traditional, conventional, or strategic warfare fighting index, the mullah regime's relative comprehensive national powers, it's like nothing compared to us. The reason why they have the fishing boats and the drone carriers and all that, it's very much in keeping with the mullah regime's asymmetric strategy to try and counter U.S. naval dominance, which is swarm attacks. It's actually one of the things we use to we learned from them, we being like the good guys, the blue force, and we leverage that idea and our operational notions to assist Ukrainians push back against Russia. Well, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state. I mean, Ukrainians were able to sit there and ensure that Putin couldn't operate in the Black Sea, and they don't even have a navy. So, I mean, the point I'm making with that is that you're not wrong. There's a reason that the United States and the United States military, almost assuredly, without me saying anything, has things to take care of swarm attack. I'm just saying that that's why they're trying to do that, right?
But Jeffrey, how many airstrike carriers are now seeming to be like? Is it just the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS George H.W. Bush? Is that the two, or is there more getting involved in this?
I wasn't trying to correct you on that show. I was just trying to add to the overall analytical framework. That's all. You were very right. The way their stuff looks like, it looks like a buskin. There's no doubt about it. Right? It's horrible. You were right to laugh at it. I just don't want us to get blindsided. No, I wasn't correcting you. To the best of my knowledge, there's one in their positions in very specific spots. You did a really good job in outlining the potential, using open intelligence sources, potential points of ingress and any strike might take, and the reason we put those pieces where they are. That was really well done. The best of my understanding is there's two that could be used.
Do you think that is it possible that Saudi Arabia and the other countries around the Persian Gulf they are going to allow United States to use their airspace? They're just saying this right now just to not piss off the Islamic Republic, but at the final hour, when they think that this is it, this is the last, is happening, and the Islamic Republic is over, then we're like, okay, come and just not only use our airspace, we're going to join you guys as well, right? Like, no, what do you think? Is that possible?
Well, anything's possible. I'm not saying it wouldn't be very much welcome to sit there and see the House of Saud and IDF Air Force kind of like side by side going in and hitting mullah targets, because that's one of the things we looked at a couple of years ago. Again, this goes to you did the AI tele video, which is very, very helpful for almost surely for a lot of people. The reason this administration, at least to the best of my assessment, has placed the assets it has, and I'm pretty sure Gary can jump in on this, is to provide this, President Trump any number of options that would allow him to do what he wants to do, independent of what those Gulf states say.
Yeah, interesting. I was just thinking about that because I thought that if they see the Islamic Republic is going to fall, and if their assessment is that, okay, we want to make sure that the next government does not hate us, last minute they might want to participate just so that they could save face in case the Islamic Republic falls. That might be a strategy. Okay, BT, I saw some hands raised.
So I just got back in and saw Amy.
Yeah.
If someone was
Yeah.
previous to her, go ahead and come on up.
Yeah, Gary, I think it was Gary. Gary, was that you before me?
Honor
No, it was
says
someone else. There was someone else I saw. Okay, but let's go with Amy. Whoever we didn't. So raise your hand again. Whoever that other person is. Oh, it was Richard. Okay, so
Hi, I actually had questions for Jeffrey and possibly Gary. They had reported war games in the Strait of Hormuz that Iran was reportedly launching with China. And my question just related to accelerated timetables. I imagine, short of a preemptive strike, if the Strait of Hormuz were closed, even if it was just due to purported war games, would you think that would also be something that would accelerate the timetable for an actual strike?
Jeffrey, yeah, you.
Potentially. I mean, that's definitely one of the issues that we have to take into account regarding any operations, the planning of any or execution of any operation, right? Mullah regime, one of its ace cards it tries to leverage is we're going to shut off the Strait of Hormuz. That said, we also have things to sit there and do things like demine the strait and all of that. I mean, I don't want to say anymore. Gary, if you want to chime in and expand off that, I'm more than welcome.
No, sure, Jeff, thanks. And Richard, thanks for posing it. So, war games, for China and Russia, when they do those with Iran, most often they're a bit closer to Karachi, So, when you come from Pakistan along the Arabian Sea into Iran, you get to a bay called Charbar, I think it is Chabar. It's right near Konarak. And the Chinese and the Russians built a really beautiful bay there for them. And that is actually one of the, when Tehran doesn't have enough water, sometimes they go there and they have coffee clutches there, the government people. So I've not seen any reports about anything going on there. In terms of war games, I think the Chinese and the Russians are maybe flying in a few planes here and there into Iran, maybe with various different types of payloads. But I don't see their navies entering into this type of war zone deliberately. Maybe if they have too much vodka, maybe they'll end up there. Some Russians. I just don't see it. They're sacrificing this buffer state as they always do.
By the way,
I hope that answers your question.
Now that we mentioned China, I just wanted to report that we're seeing from the Islamic Republic supporters that they're frustrated with China right now. And China just recently also came out and offered to be a mediator if both sides ask, which they found so insulting. Like, they're not coming in and trying to help the Islamic Republic to stop all of this. But like, hey, if you guys want to talk, we're like, so they found that very insulting, and they're very angry with the Chinese right now, regime supporters.
Yeah, I mean they've just I noticed that President Shira, was in Moscow the other day, and so was President Erdogan and a few others. I mean, if you really want to get bamboozled by the Russians, do it in a time of crisis. They'll guarantee not give you anything that you need, and then when they have no use for you, they'll just abandon you. It's just so pathetic.
I mean, it makes sense though. Like, why would I, if I was Russia or China, why would I spend money on a sinking ship? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, I think they could see that there's no point saving the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, so I've seen the end of this movie, guys, and the Islamic Republic will not be there. And I will bet you a juju kebab dinner at my favorite restaurant in Tehran, Armin. I will
Oh my
bet you
god,
that.
I missed that because the juju kebabs outside of Iran is not the same. So
It's definitely
this-
not the same, but I don't know if you remember the one on Vanak Expressway. It was kind of a ways out, but it was absolutely the favorite place. Had all these tiered gardens with a river running through it, and you could sit there and have abajo and bob all day. Yeah, yeah. But these guys,
the current exchange rate, your dollar will go a far, far way in buying that stuff in Tehran.
oh my God. But guys, really, I mean, with everything that's going on, I think you saw the report in the Jerusalem Post, probably within the past 24, 48 hours, confirming what we've been trying to share, which is that Elon Musk is getting Starlink setups throughout the northwestern and western part of Iran. And he's not charging anybody service. It's free of charge. And that's allowing penetration on the ground closer and closer to the central plain. And from my perspective, all the assets are there. As Jeff is pointing out, I can't count how many ships are there, not necessary, but they know we know what's there. And everything is just there. I mean, all you can do, I mentioned this in my Substack, Armin, the worst thing to do right now, if you're the leader of a Middle East country, is to speak with bravado, puff your chest up, and keep doing the same old garbage that you usually do. That's usually the end of your tenure in office, and that's what these guys are doing.
Richard, sorry, unmute yourself because I had to mute you. You had some background noise, so sorry about that. Richard.
I was saying Elon Musk has some pretty clear sympathies with the revolution. He was the one who changed the lion and sun flag on X. So I think it's pretty clear where he stands in terms of the larger goals. And I think maybe long term he could see huge profit potential on investing in a post-Islamic Republic Iran.
I think it's a profit motive, though. I think he really wants to use this technology to make sure people can communicate whether they're on Mars or they're in Iran. Full stop.
I do want to also give credit to the Iranian people's correct stance, especially outside of Iran, but that caused all of this, right? I think the Iranian people, by showing that they're pro-Israel for all of these years, especially after October 7th, that is now, you're now seeing worked, because I think the world noticed that we are on the right side. And I think all of that activism in favor of Israel and in favor of the West has put the Iranian people in a position where the world understand that these are the people on our side and these are the people that we need to support. So I think that the fact that we're getting some support from the world, from the anti-Palestinian cause crowd, is also, the Iranian people deserve credit for being so loud about the stance that they're taking, for the world to notice them and now come into their defense, at least the right side of the world.
I think it's also contributed to the people's perception that the disconnect between the Iranian people and the so-called government is the largest in the world. That basically they support the revolution now because they see that gap is unsustainable and that the people deserve something a lot better than what they have now.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, Mr. Friedman, did you want to be added to the list, or did you have kind of an additional comment for the back and forth?
BT, I'm not. I haven't had enough coffee yet. It's been a long night. Could I say it right now? Actually,
Sure.
Well, it's so. In addition to all the the assets being there that are there, mission number one for the United States, mission number one is securing those nuclear sites. Those nuclear sites are not going to be in Iranian hands for much longer. But the second mission, which it is kind of hard to know which one comes first, is the support for the Iranian people making a choice. And the multiple choice question in terms of what government's going to be there does not include the current theocracy. Okay, so those are 1 and 2. But number 3, one of the things that's really a priority right now, from my understanding, is to gather as much in the way of government computing capabilities and access to databases of the theocracy, because they're going to expose a lot of the connections to the funding of everything that's been going on in Gaza, in Lebanon, in the West Bank, in Yemen, you just name it. There's going to be a lot of revelation of things that have gone on between the European governments and Iran, other governments and Iran. Those are a priority, and those are going to be pretty embarrassing. I think more embarrassing than the Epstein files.
Yeah, I mean, way more embarrassing. Yeah, I mean, the Epstein files was a nothing burger, but that's a good comparison.
Thank
you.
you.
All right, I actually have some questions for you, but because I know Amy and others have been waiting, I'm just going to wait for when it's my turn.
So you're actually after Amy, and Amy is having connection issues. So we'll let you skip the line just this once, Armin.
Oh, and okay, thank you, though.
Okay, next was Jeffrey.
Give him my spot too.
You guys are messing up my list. Okay. Shauna.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm on a speaker on a phone, so we'll see how this goes. I just wanted to know how strong the Russian Navy was, if anybody has any idea. And I also wanted to comment, this is just based on what I'm seeing, so this isn't hard data, but I will occasionally watch CNN or clips of CNN. And one thing that I'm actually seeing in the comments section is that there does seem to be a growing, it's tentative, but it does seem that Americans are finally starting to at least be supportive of enough of the Iranians that they were willing to call out CNN in the comment section. They were like, this is bullshit. The Americans in the comment section were like, this is ridiculous. So I do think that your work and Goldie's and Tusi's is having an impact. I do think that Americans are slowly starting to recover from their post-Iraq trauma derangement syndrome. I think it's still tentative, but I do think that we could be optimistic that maybe there's some growing understanding that, okay, we really fucked up in Iraq, but that doesn't mean we should just become isolationists. I see Americans slowly becoming a little bit more balanced and nuanced. So, but yeah, and then my question for anybody who wants to answer about the Russian Navy.
Well, I can answer.
Before you talk about the Russian Navy, I want to talk about the Iraq and Afghanistan thing. Americans should remember that they did regime change in Nazi Germany. Don't know many people in America that are against that. That ended up being really good. They did regime change in Imperial Japan. Not that many people are against that. Germany is doing really good right now, and it's a major, U.S. ally, and it's the largest economy of Europe. Japan is a major U.S. ally, and it's one of the world's largest economies. More recently, United States did regime change in Panama. That ended up working out. So people keep mentioning Iraq and Afghanistan, they forget the good examples of regime change. And also with regards to Iraq, technically the military, I mean, you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the military, operations for removal of Saddam, that was beautiful. That was done masterfully. And it was, in my opinion, the right thing to do, even though they shouldn't have focused on WMDs, but removing Saddam was a good idea. The part that they messed up was the de-Baathification after the fall of Saddam, because that caused the power vacuum that caused the chaos. That was the rise of ISIS and everything. That was the mistake. The military did its job beautifully. The politicians messed it up after. And again, remind them that because of that mistake, we have learned from that, and remind them that Prince Reza Pahlavi very much highlights this de-Baathification error in Iraq, and constantly reminds both Iranians and foreigners that the plan that he has in the Iran Prosperity Project is to keep the framework of basically have a blanket for forgiveness for people who don't have blood on their hand, and keep the people who are working in different institutions in the Islamic Republic, keep their jobs and keep the framework, and basically not destroy the entire structure that we already have, to avoid that mistake repeating itself inside Iraq. Also remind people that the Iranian people are way more united than the people in Iraq. Iraq is a very hard country to keep together, and they don't have a national unity. The Iranian people are very much united when it comes to making their country work. Obviously, any transition is difficult, but it's easier to build something from that when everybody is on the same page regarding what needs to be done.
Well, and also there isn't, from what I can tell, there isn't a unified identity in Iraq. The Muslims and the Muslim invasions to Babylon were, unfortunately, it seems more effective than they were in Iran, as far as like switching up identities.
Yeah, so we have Shia identity, Sunni identity, and Kurdish identity. And the Shias, the Kurdish Iraqis, for example, see themselves as Kurd first, more than Iraqi. The Shia parts of Iraq, the Sunni parts of Iraq, they're more united based on their Sunni identity rather than their Iraqi identity, and the same thing with the Shias. So that's why it makes it very difficult to make this work as a country. Yeah. For the Russia question, if anybody else wants to respond to it,
Short answer. I can give a short answer.
Daniel Dome had something for us.
Yeah, just a second. On the Russian Navy, we can say it's dysfunctional, consider it irrelevant. Jeffrey can approve my words, I guess. And this is the short answer.
Jeffrey, did you want to answer regarding the Russian military? What was the okay.
Oh, my original question was how strong is the Russian military or a navy specifically?
It's a disaster. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like, I'm not saying it's like two pickle-eating hobos in a rowboat. It's a disaster.
That's the Islamic Republic. That's a more accurate description of the Islamic Republic's Navy. I think,
they're a
right?
double disaster.
Jeffrey gave a shorter answer.
Oh my God. Yeah. But
So
but Jeffrey,
America should not
yeah, go on.
be afraid of them then. Is that what you're saying, is we don't have a lot of causes for concern as
There's
America?
one.
Hold on, you should never underestimate your adversary. I mean, you have a actor that has access to a like large rusted stockpile of Soviet era junk. Still, it's a lot of junk, so it's not like you ever want to turn your eye to it. What I'm saying is, if you're trying to compare, say, the Russian Navy, at least as it's predominantly defined, not like the Status Six and all this other stuff that they're working on, it's junk, especially when it's compared to the United States. I think one of their aircraft carriers just randomly lit on fire. Their sub drowned a couple of their people. I mean, don't get me wrong, Putin is working very hard, to try and fix that at the cost of starving and killing his people. Well, I mean, how can I prove this? Well, Ukraine without a navy has absolutely hammered Russia's navy in the Black Sea. So she brought up a good point, though, with regards to national will, particularly in response to the war weariness that was incurred due to U.S. led military intervention in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to bounce off of that because that's actually one of the things, the Red Green Alliance, that's one of the lines or narratives they're trying to use to undermine solidarity and support for Iranian protesters and or erode national will surrounding you or regarding U.S. strikes against the Mullah regime. So Armin's not wrong. A couple of the key things like disinformation pushed by U.S. led military intervention in Iraq by the non-interventionists. First off, WMDs was not the primary reason we went in. That was number 3 out of 16 reasons that were cited by former President George W. Bush in September, maybe 12th, 16th of 2002. It's called a decade of deception and defiance, and the number one reason was Saddam Hussein's Ba'athist regime's non-compliance to UN resolutions. The reason we had a issue in the post-military phase reconstruction or post-military reconstruction phase of Operation Iraqi Freedom is because we were delayed by non-interventionists both here and within the United Nations. So radical leftists, the same ones that are trying to undermine our support for brave Iranian protesters, radical leftists, libertarians to a lesser degree, and they forced us to go to the United Nations that was populated by dishonest and hostile state actors, not the least of which is, Putin's Russia, the Chinese Communist Party, elements in Western Europe that all had vested interest in keeping Saddam in power to the tunes of billions of dollars from backdoor oil concessions from the Oil for Food program. And that includes also Kofi Annan's son. And what that did is they allowed Saddam time to decentralize all his federal troop centers of gravity and wage a protracted initial period of insurgency to undermine our reconstruction efforts. That allowed exogenous or external regional actors like the Mullah regime to start flooding in fighters. We were actually supposed to hit the Mullah regime in 2005 after we took down Saddam. Additionally, we also found thousands of tons of chemical weapons in Iraq and 558 metric tons of lower medium, which is in direct violation of UN Resolution 687, Articles 7, 8, 9, 11, and 12, as well as some of the intelligence that directly underwrote the ability for the United States and Israel to identify the underground heart of nuclear reactor that Assad's Alawite regime was trying to build and thereby afforded the Israelis to take out said underground and hardened reactors, specifically the idea of leveraging diffuse heat dispersal amongst like a nearby located river.
Okay, next we have Mr. Spivak.
It's a boy action. All right. So I'm trying to think about the situation from the perspective of China. The USS Lincoln was conducting live fire drills in the South China Sea before all the news about how it's moving towards Iran. And this movement comes at the cost of millions of dollars to the US per day.
Oh, did he get cut for me or for you too?
He's cut.
He's frozen, yeah.
Okay, so he was talking about China's percent. Let's move on to the next person. Russia cut him, yes. No, China.
I had accidentally skipped over Shai. He had something to add to the Russia bit.
Oh, okay.
Russia is an interesting case of As far as I know, about a fifth of the population wants a revolution and overthrow Putin in Russia and would support the Ukrainians, maybe more, I don't know. But it's a terrible, sad situation because it's a dictatorship of their security forces, or what used to be the KGB. And I would support a minority revolution in Russia where somebody takes over and enacts some kind of republic democracy. Iran is very lucky to apparently have a majority of people who would support a revolution.
We can hear. We can hear.
Is better?
Yep, that was better. But we got it. Oh, did he disconnect himself? I think he disconnected himself. All right, let's go to Danny.
Whoops.
Danny,
Whoopsies, I'm back.
Oh.
Is this better now?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's
Okay.
good. Got it.
Did you hear everything I said last time? So I said Russia, I would support
oh
a
my
revolution in Russia. It would
It's
be
okay.
great, but
We're good.
unfortunately, I don't think we have
We're
a
good.
majority of
We're
people who
good.
want to
We're
overthrow
good.
Putin, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Danny now.
Okay. I don't know exactly where I cut off, but
Just
yeah,
start from
I'll just-
scratch. Let's start from scratch because, yeah.
So I was saying that the USS Lincoln was conducting live fire drills in the South China Sea before all the news about how it's moving towards Iran. And this comes at the cost of millions of dollars to the US per day and at an opportunity cost of where the US projects power. So even though I know it's not in the cards right now, imagine that China wants to launch a surprise invasion of Taiwan. It becomes much easier if American carriers are tied up elsewhere. So with the understanding that China plans to invade Taiwan in the not so distant future, from China's perspective, if the Islamic Republic somehow manages to survive a few more years, they could wait for America's forces to be diverted again in the future revolution when China is more ready, and then they can launch their invasion of Taiwan. So, to you guys saying that China views the Islamic Republic as just a completely disposable source of cheap oil, I think they have a real interest in keeping them as a future card to play. And it's more a matter of considering the cost of any interventions that they have available and the probability that these efforts could save the Islamic Republic.
Okay, before we go to Jeffrey or Gary, because they have, I think, probably better responses to this, I'm just wondering, even if that's true, what are you going to do? Like, this is, to me, this is like a sinking ship that is not savable. So it's just like, it would be great if the Islamic Republic would stay, but I think the Chinese are smart enough to realize that there's no saving the Islamic Republic, so why save something that is not savable? Well, I don't know, but let me see what Jeffrey or Gary, do you guys have any opinions in this? Go ahead. Jeffrey.
Which one you want? You want me or Gary? I can speak to it. Gary can speak. So it's pretty clear that members of the autocratic bloc, whether it's Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party, and/or Mullah regime, are coordinating their efforts amongst different respective theaters. Mullah regime in the Middle East, Putin in Europe, and the Chinese Communist Party in Southeast Asia, as you correctly identified. I mentioned in previous podcasts that, yeah, the Chi-Coms and Putin are very much trying to bump up the support to the mullahs. That's true that they're doing that. The simple fact to make the cost more. It's not to save the mullah regime. It's to make it cost the most it could for us. That's bait and bleed or bloodletting. That was in the report I posted in the discussion. Here's the issue with that. The very nature of the regime that it is a pseudo-theologically motivated actor, and subsequently its pursuit of weapons of mass destruction is inelastic, as well as the operational impact of global socioeconomic and technological trends, making it, increasing the lines of proliferation or obtaining WMDs and or lowering the entrance barrier for them to get it, means we have to take them out no matter what. That said, there's a reason also why Pete Hegseth bumped up our military and defense industrial base.
I think that Jeffrey is a very wise human being. And there is no chance that those doors on those 20 plus places that do nuclear R&D in Iran, there's no chance they're going to still have Farsi writing on them for very long. It's going to be pure English, period.
Oh, and Jeffrey wanted to add to that.
So that's true. I mean, as far as like the traditional, the post-strike analysis, the follow-up to the post-strike analysis after Operation Midnight Hammer, I sent up the chain, very much separated into three tranches: good, bad, ugly. Good is that President Trump's big, beautiful strike, he was right on the money. It definitely stopped or paused the Mullah regime's traditional approach towards obtaining WMD capability. The bad is you have other actors like Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, Chinese Communist Party, that could either assist them in refining the 600, 750 kilograms of medium rich uranium, 60%, right? Because it's very easy to go from 60 to 80 than it is to go from 0 to 60. So you have like very quick breakout. Or provide them turnkey systems, which again underwrites, not to disagree with you, Gary, I'm saying this to further underwrite why the Mullah regime has to go. Because there's any number of other approaches the Mullah regime is actively pursuing, which is why Donald is saying, I want you to get rid of all your nuclear and missile technology, Mullah. Right? There's a reason he said that. Because he knows they're not giving it up. The probability the Mullah regime will ever give up their pursuit of weapons of mass destruction is extremely low. Extremely low. They have to go.
As a way to, on our Persian channel, when I tell Iranians what's happening, I'm going to actually use your reports to create live streams where I update the Iranians regarding where we're at. So I'm going to be using your reports from now on for that. BT? Is she here with us?
Yes, Susie.
Okay. Oh, Susie.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, as a throwaway side point, I just wanted to say that I don't know what Jeffrey has done for his career, but all I know is that by the mere vocabulary used, I know not to cross this man. Okay, I don't want no smoke. That's not my main point. I'm like, I consider myself an educated metropolitan young woman, and I don't know what the hell this man is saying half the time. The main thing that I wanted to say, this is just like silly, is one thing that I've been thinking about that's been keeping me going is like one day we can all have a watch party of Reza Pahlavi's like coronation, and I keep thinking of us doing like a watch party for the return and repatriation and funeral for his father being repatriated back to Iran. And like, I don't know, I just think of those things and how joyful we'll be, and that's what's been keeping me going. But low key, it made me realize that if that's what I want, then I can't be for a republic, because that necessitates a constitutional monarchy. So it's like, well, damn. Yeah, if that's what I want to see, that there's very specific conditions for that. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that nice thought.
Actually, that's what reminds me that we Iranians need to do a better job communicating with Americans regarding a constitutional monarchy, because American history, the monarchy that the Americans were against, they were very justified to be against the monarchy that they were against. Okay, it was an absolute monarchy, and it was very unfair to them, and the revolution was completely justified. And the republic model and the federal model really works for America. It has made some Americans think like monarchy means tyranny and monarchy is bad. I mean, they have a no kings protest every year. We need to basically do a better job saying, yeah, monarchy was bad for America, right? But monarchy is not necessarily bad inherently. And monarchy doesn't mean tyranny necessarily. Also, another thing I need to communicate to everyone more is that a constitutional monarchy is a republic, right? So in Iran, we say a republic or a constitutional monarchy, but by a republic, we mean a republic without a monarch. But technically, a constitutional monarchy is still a republic because we have elections, we're going to have a constitution, we're going to have a parliament, we're going to have a prime minister. That is a republic. Technically, any form of government where the form of the government has been decided by the people. And also, if you have either a constitution or something that acts like a constitution, so basically limits the rule of majority, makes you a republic. So a republic is basically a democracy with limits to majority rule. Any form of government that is a democracy with limits to majority rule is technically a republic. So a constitutional monarchy is still a republic, but we also need to show to Americans that what works for America doesn't necessarily work for Iran. and a constitutional monarchy could be a very effective form of government. We need to do a better job in communicating that.
Dude, I know I'm in too deep because this morning, low key, I cried over like this music video of Reza Pahlavi as a little kid with his dad.
Oh.
And I'm like, what am I doing? I need to chill out, man. No, but for real, like, I'm really sensitive to the fact that, you know, as a non-Iranian, like, I don't want to make the mistake of being one of those Westerners that is like way more hardcore than the actual population itself. Like, I think it's so cringe. They're all these like white girls that make Palestine like their whole personality and are literally more extreme than other Palestinians. Now, granted, I don't think I'm
that's the
more
same.
extreme than the Iranians I know because my Iranian friends are hardcore. But you know what I mean.
No, I don't think that's what's cringe about. I don't think that's what's cringe about them. I think what's cringe about them is that they're literally supporting terrorists, right? I think if you want to be hardcore supporting the right side of history, I think you should be able to be as hardcore as you want. What's cringe about them is that they're literally like very passionate about supporting evil people. That's what's wrong about them.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think like those of us who are not Iranian needs to be sensitive to the fact of like.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think the Iranian people appreciate somebody being that hardcore about
No.
Iran.
I understand. What I mean is like, let's say when the tides turn and the Islamic Republic falls, like I don't want the non-Iranians to be like more bloodthirsty than the Iranians themselves. You know what I mean? Like more, because I see that kind of attitude among like the pro-Palestinian people. Like there are people from Gaza being like, guys, like stop, you're actually hurting us with the way that your attitude is. You're silencing our own voices, you're not letting us breathe, you're supporting the people that kill us. Like
you're not going to get there though, Susanna. I think like being emotionally affected by the video of Prince Reza Pahlavi as a child is way before that I think you're okay.
Well,
you're really good.
Yeah.
And when it comes to being radical, it's really hard to outdo right now the Iranian people and what they hope they could do right now, given what they just went through. So I think you're okay on that as well. I mean, the messages that I'm getting out of Iran, like, it's scary, but justifiably so.
We'll organize an intervention if we need to. Don't worry, girl.
Don't worry. And Susanna, you're always, everything you do is so appreciated. Always. And you know that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and what BT said as well. All right.
I mean, can I ask a question real quick?
Well, ask the mod, BT. I'm not the mod. BT is the boss.
I don't know. BT just hates me.
What? No, go quick, go. No,
Yeah,
I don't.
you hate me. You're hating me. Some way. I don't know why.
Okay, quickly because people are on the list.
I was this post about a biker girl from Iran who was killed by the IRGC, and like, is that true? Do you know something about it?
Yes, that's true.
Okay, well, okay.
All right, let's get back to the list now.
Okay, Cat Lady.
Cat Lady. Is she here? Oh, she's saying my mic is not connected. Okay.
Too much catnip. Okay, we will move on to Dajjal and while we wait for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was going to address what you said about constitutional monarchy and the British. What my country experienced. I'm very pro American Revolution, of course, country. But you said the British monarchy was an absolute monarchy. That's not exactly true. It was actually a constitutional parliamentary monarchy, but we had no representation in the parliament, and we were refused representation.
Well, no, it was an absolute monarchy for America. It might
Yeah,
have been a constitutional monarchy for them, but it was an absolute monarchy
sure.
for
I
America.
was just eliminating those points. I was just putting it out there. Yeah, it was like, yes, for us it was basically apartheid. Yeah, we no taxation without representation. That's where that came from. But yeah, I'm just saying, I get your point. But Iran isn't America, and that's going to be a completely different situation. All this probably going to be a lot like the old school British Empire in some ways, except that they'll actually have representation like we did. But yeah, I just wanted to put that in there. As far as Iraq, the thing with Iraq is, and it goes to what you were saying, we call it the Iraq War, the Second Iraq War. There were actually two wars. You had the war against Saddam, which we won in very short order. And the aftermath, which we were talking about with the debathification and all that shit, that came second. And that war was a disaster, the way we went about it. I was just furthering your point there. So not all interventions are bad. World War II was an excellent example of a good intervention. It had to be done. What we're doing in Iran, that's good. I think we should have dealt with Iran instead of Iraq. I don't think that should ever happen, period. But we should have dealt with Iran a long time ago, but I take your point. Black and white, that kind of black and white thinking has been very disastrous for us. It's like Shauna said, well, I think we're finally getting past that point and can actually be rational again.
All right. Who's next?
Okay, Cat Lady, is your mic better or are we calling it a loss?
She said add me at the end of the list.
Okay, then next we have Shauna.
Shauna.
Okay. Do we think that maybe the kind of libertarian isolationist or sort of pseudo libertarian, pseudo isolationist, kind of that version of nationalism, do we think that we're coming out of that kind of phase? Because I feel like most of my voting life, that was where the momentum was, both on the left and the right. There was kind of Obama version of it, and then there was sort of the Trump one version of it. But I feels like we're kind of slowly coming to a new dawn in American politics, and we're kind of moving away from both libertarianism in some ways, which I have mixed feelings about because there's things about libertarians that I like, but then also we are seemingly moving away from the kind of isolationism of the early aughts and the 2010s. I'm just curious what people think. Just throwing it out there.
The libertarians in America, I don't think they understand libertarianism, right? A lot of libertarians in America keep acting like the government should never be involved in like they're anarchists rather than libertarians, right? I consider myself a libertarian. I want the government to limited government so we could save money, so we could have a bigger military, so we could spend shit ton of money on the military, because
That's
that's the
kind of
role
a
that
Randian. That's more of a Randian thing, though. The libertarians and the Randians. Okay, this just gets into very like small government, like pissing contest. But the Randians and the libertarians do not see eye to eye on everything.
But libertarian itself, believing in free market capitalism and limited government, the libertarians that I listen to, they act like the government should never be involved. That is not right. Like if you read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith, which is basically how capitalism started, it has a lot of rules for the government. It believes that the government needs to adjust for positive and negative externalities, to subsidize the types of activity that the government is blind to and is positive for the rest of society, and to tax the ones that have negative externalities and is their third party externalities that the market is blind to. Also, we want, the government should stay out of many, like as a libertarian myself, I believe the government should stay out of everything that the private sector could do better, right? So that it could save its money to become very, very involved in things that the government will do better than the private sector. Like I want the government to stay out of, I don't know, maybe education and healthcare and anything that the private sector is better at. They could subsidize it, but not run it. They could come in at the demand side rather than the supply side. But from all the money that is saving, I want to make sure that we have a giant military. I want to make sure that we have a really effective police force, really good courts. The government could focus on corruption and crimes and stability and security, and also adjusting for positive and negative externalities. But then if that's going to make my country very rich, and that rich
So,
country is going to be able to afford, hold on, let me finish.
okay.
That rich country is going to be able to afford a big military, and with that big military, if we could have a global presence that will that will stabilize trade. As a libertarian, I'm going to be in favor of global trade. If my country has a big military that could stabilize trade routes, so my country could do better trades with other countries, I'm going to be in favor of that. So I would be in favor as a libertarian for a global military presence of my country, because my country has saved enough money to be able to afford that.
Right. So the thing is that happens the kind of the way the Libertarian Party went though is it very much got like I call it ISO cucked. It very much became we don't want to have military presence everywhere because our military is funded by the government taxes and taxation is theft and blah blah blah. Like that's kind of what I know where
It's
I
retarded.
understand. I'm just telling you as somebody who came out of that cult, not a literal cult, but like I very much came from that world until October 7th. And then all these like free anti-racist, free open hippie types who just liked capitalism turned on all of their Jews, even the Jews who had established half of the thoughts that they were parroting. So that was kind of part of my wake up call.
I understand that. I just want to say, don't, just because they advocate for that, don't let them represent libertarianism. Like, that is not what libertarianism is about,
Well,
just because
I
they
don't
call
know
themselves
that
libertarian.
I see where you're coming from, but that's like saying I guess where I would disagree is that's like saying that when leftists when the old left said this is not say that the woke left isn't the left. Yes, they're technically correct, but to the average person, that is what the leftists become. So a lot of
Well,
the
I mean,
old guard
this I actually could justify me saying they are not libertarians. Libertarians are supposed to be for capitalism. Capitalism believes in taxes, right? Capitalism believes in taxes. So
can
saying
you
taxation is, yeah.
ooh, okay. They would say that capitalism that taxes like in that because they also believe in this kind of idea of non-aggression and since you're paying taxes by the gun, I'm not defending their points. I'm just telling you
That's
what I
anarchism. They're not libertarians. They're anarchists. They're anarchists. These are anarchists who are calling themselves libertarians.
yeah, I guess you're probably right, but they would also argue that anarchy is just the logical conclusion of libertarianism. That's what they would
That's
say.
not true.
You can take
Capitalism
it up
does
with them.
not
I'm
work.
not going to defend their
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
I'm
I
just
know.
telling you what they would
Okay.
say. I'm not here to defend that. I'm just telling you what they would say. My main point, though, to wrap up my thoughts so we can move on, is do we think that we are coming to the end of the first 20 years of the 21st century? That's my main point.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there were some people who wanted to add to that.
We have a few hands that wanted to add to it. Adam had 14 hands, so we'll let him go first.
I'm a piano player, so I just did a trill. I'm a spam artist. I wanted to comment on the whole definitional thing, especially because analytic philosophy is my original training. So we like to be, and computer programming, so definitions and like to be precise about them. But am I able to share my screen? Does that work? I have a political compass thing I want to show here.
Yeah, I think. Well, let me see. Maybe I should allow you.
There's a waiting
Allow
for.
screen sharing. There
Okay,
we
let me
go.
try it.
Allow screen sharing.
And this is, I did these graphs. I mean, I got these from this website where you can take the questionnaire, politicalcompass.org, and these are Canadian political parties. So conservative this is the federal version of the party that kicked Goldie out, right? And they've drifted to the right. And I'm actually a lefty. You can see me on the right hand here, adamgolding.ca. I'm like to the left of the party that fired me, which is the NDP. So we were both kicked out of the extremes and think independently, I think. But in Canada, for instance, I think there should be a horizontal line that goes along the bottom of anarchists who are united left versus right. So the anarcho socialists on the left with the anarcho-capitalists on the right. You could call them both anarchists, Armin. Like, I know you were saying, like, well, those people are anarchists. Well, those are anarchists who care about one kind of freedom, which is negative freedom. Don't tread on me, small government. But anarcho-socialists care about positive freedom of enablement.
Such level of extreme freedom that you're only free to die, basically.
Yeah,
because there's
and that's,
nothing
I
to
would say
support
that's,
you.
yeah, and I would say that's
Freedom-
too far right. But I think
focusing so much on negative freedoms with no positive freedoms means that you're only free to die. You're only free enough to see if you could basically how much you're going to be able to survive against somebody with a bigger stick than you to come kill you and take you. You're free to do whatever you want, but you're going to die soon.
And so I think that's too far right on the sort of line that should be going from left to right, joining all of the anarchists together. And I think the libertarianism has been pushed to the right in order to disrupt the anti-authoritarians. So the other thing you see in that graph is that everything's drifted to the authoritarian direction. I think it's a divide and conquer strategy, basically, of taking the anarchists and straw manning it as absolute anarchism or far right anarcho-capitalism, when really all of the different anti-authoritarians should be working together. Like, we're resisting the authoritarianism of the Islamic regime. That's a kind of anarchism because
anarchism goes too far being against authority. We need governments. When it comes to both right-leaning and left-leaning anarchists, the issue I have with them is that they're too anti-government.
It could be. I think the most flexible definition is Chomsky's, and he just says it's a skepticism of power and where you place the burden of proof on the power difference. Some extreme anarchists say he's not even a real anarchist, but I just think he's providing a very flexible
I don't think skepticism of government makes you anarchist. I think that's just skepticism, which is yeah, okay. I don't think that's a good definition. I think anarchists just don't like government. I have never met an anarchist that says like, "Oh, actually, government can be good." Never met one.
Well,
neither from the right or the
you
left.
met me today, so I'll try to live down the stereotype of anarchists who are extreme absolutists about it. Chomsky doesn't think the government should be completely abolished, but he identifies as an anarchist, right?
Chomsky is not a good source of information. I don't like.
Well, that could be true, but he's affected what the words mean. That's for sure. So the way he uses the word, he says it's burden of proof, and he's an anarchist, even though he's not trying to shut down the U.S. government. It's a disposition.
He sounds like he is, but anyways, he's anti the U.S. government. All right,
he's not.
Let's go to other people.
Sure. So we had two other people who.
No, but thank you. I appreciate that.
We had two others who wanted to comment on this subject, and then I'm going to ask that we table it until after Armin is gone. That way we make sure we get everything Iran covered while he's here.
Yeah, I want to get to what John was saying. You said that you used to be more isolationist before October 7th, and that kind of woke you up.
October 8th is what woke me up. Yes.
That's been true for a lot of people.
Well, also seen, I can't remember names right now, but a lot of the libertarian space was created by Jewish writers, some of whom were Zionist and some of whom weren't. But regardless of their views on Zionism, what I saw between October 8th and, let's say, the new year was just organizations and all of these people turning on people and then also continue to parrot them. And I'm like, you're quoting people that you have just excommunicated. So it just the hypocrisy of it and the fact that they were just like deleting the names while still carrying on these ideas that they contributed to, it fundamentally pissed me off.
Yeah, I can understand that. I noticed that myself.
Dijal, we're so behind our list, so if you could just make your final point before we move on.
Yeah, sure. I was just saying, I get what I understand what you're saying. You interrupted my train of thought. Yeah, I get. Yeah, I saw the same thing. It was pretty ridiculous. A lot of them are very vicious about it. But I have a similar trajectory. I used to be more isolationist myself.
Francesco, you're up next.
Yeah, my question is for Jeffrey, and I don't know. I think it's a very, I would say, stupid, naive question. It's like, why didn't Russia give the nukes already to the Islamic Republic? Why didn't that happen? They have a big stockpile of nuclear weapons, right? Russia in itself. Why didn't just give some to the Islamic Republic? And because they were trying to make their own. So didn't it make strategic sense to just provide the weapon?
Russia to the Islamic Republic? That's your question?
Yeah.
Okay, before Jeffrey answers, just let me quickly say that Russia agrees with the United States that the Islamic Republic should never have nuclear weapons. They have consistently been on the same side of the United States. That's not true? Jeffrey, go ahead.
So that's not true. So Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, is in the process, has played a role in facilitating the Mullah regime's transformation and expansion of the Shah's truly civil nuclear program, which was civilian.
Jeffrey, nuclear. Let me clarify what I was saying before you respond.
I'm telling you right now, it's not true. I'm telling you, it's not true.
Okay. I'm talking about they want them to be able to have nuclear enrichment abilities, okay, but not to the point of having nuclear weapon.
So actually, that's going to be in one of the reports I post in the discussion that separates the Shah, the Mullahs, and His Highness Reza Pahlavi's approach towards nuclear power. Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state selling 2 light water reactors to Iran, building off some of the stuff and expanding in a manner that supports weapons-grade enrichment, not civilian application of what the Shah's truly civilian nuclear program was. So the Shah wanted nuclear power back in the 70s. The Shah gets taken down via the Red-Black Alliance. In the beginning, the Ayatollah was like, yep, anything that's Western is evil. Then in about a couple years later, in the early 80s, that switches where now the Mullah regime's pursuing nuclear weapons. The Soviets started helping them modify I can't pronounce it, Bashir nuclear plant, which was initially built by Germany. It was half finished while tragically when the Shah fell. This kind of cooperation continues even after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was paused for a bit during, what's his name? Not Gorbachev, the other guy. I'm having a brain fart. Before Putin. Putin picks up, starts assisting, the Mullah regime's pursuit of nuclear weapons, or building dual purpose capability to enrich uranium to the point where they can support a nuclear weapons program. The Chi-Coms were giving them experience on how to modify that reactor. So as far as the idea of why Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state doesn't provide whole turnkey systems to the Mullah regime, that's 6-7. Partly probably because that's one of the levers that Putin tries to, or has traditionally tried to use to eat concessions out of the United States. Our response will be very quickly to then nuclearize Ukraine, right? Tit for tat. That said, if you think you're on your way out, then you just kind of act like a douchebag because you really don't care about long-term costs, do you? And that's where Putin's at right now, along with the Mullah regime. So
okay, so there is a chance for
there is
providing.
That's again why the Mullah regime has to go, right? Because you have all these exogenous actors, whether it's Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, the Chinese Communist Party, elements of Pakistan via AQ Khan and his descendants or followers. They have to go.
Let me just check this with Jeffrey, okay? Because in 2015, Russia physically removed over 25,000 pounds of enriched uranium from Iran to prevent bomb making. Russia supplies all fuel for the Islamic Republic's Bushehr plant and demands the return of all spent waste, preventing plutonium extraction. And then Russia voted for major UN Security Council sanctions between 2006 and 2010, specifically to stop the Islamic Republic's enrichment. And basically, a nuclear-armed Islamic Republic would rival Russia's regional power, potentially trigger an arms race on Russia's southern border. So what do you think about these points?
So I'm not saying that Russia didn't do that in the early aughts. That's true. That is, as the environment changes, as the concentration of power changes, as different countries' internal demographic and other pressures change, so do their priorities. And I would contend that almost assuredly, given Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state's track record of providing restricted dual purpose technology to the Ba'athist regime, and then, while they were delaying our efforts to take down the Ba'athist regime in Iraq prior to Operation Iraqi Freedom, having plainclothes Spetsnaz sanitizing Russia's involvement, Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state's involvement in doing so, that while Russia may say one thing, they doesn't mean they adhere to it. So, Putin has violated any number of agreements.
I just remember the reason why I had this other impression, because I remember for over the years the Islamic Republic being extremely frustrated with Russia over this.
So the initial hesitancy might be that they just wanted to keep, they're trying to game it out so that they can use it as leverage, long-term leverage against the United States and or dependency upon Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state. Like I said, those priorities change. First, I don't trust Putin's criminalized counterintelligence because they violate every agreement they ever signed.
Right,
And second off, people's priorities change as the environment changes, both geopolitically, strategically, and internally.
So
when I get the report, I'll send it to you. You'll be able. It's all cited.
Okay. Last thing I want to say is which is I'm not saying it's correct based on what Jeffrey's saying, but my impression always has been that Russia loves the idea for the Islamic Republic to always be able to be one step away from having a nuclear weapon, as a way but not actually having it, but being one step away from it, to always be able to threaten the United States, or they're gonna come nuclear. So always to use it as a way as a pressure point. That was their main goal.
So that might have been during the early aughts. Here's the problem with that. How do you enforce that? How do you enforce that with the Mullah regime that is pseudo-theologically motivated? Yep. There really is no way.
Okay. All right.
We had a comment from Coping in the chat that I'd like to read. The reason is simple. The Islamic Republic is geopolitically an irrational actor and too close to Russia to risk. Also, a regime change will make Iran potentially a perpetual liability.
Yep. Obviously.
So next, we have Armin.
Oh, I have a question for Jeffrey and Gary. If you were right now the Islamic Republic, what would you do? Throw out all morality out the window and think survival only. Survival only. After the massacre that you have committed on the Iranian people, with Trump's military asset all around Iran, and Israel signaling that they're also ready to attack, and the European Union also declaring the IRGC as a terrorist group, and knowing that the Iranian people are ready for another uprising as soon as they get the chance, what would you do right now? What would be the best strategy for survival?
I guess the Mullah regime's best chance for survival would be to get clandestine transfer of nuclear weapons and the means to mass deliver them.
Can they do that right now?
Well, so remember what you had said regarding how the Mullah regime is trying when they looked at Iraq vis-a-vis North Korea, right? And so you have two case studies, right? You have Saddam, who was in pursuit of nuclear weapons along with other types of WMD capability. The mix was different than, say, before Operation, what was it, Desert Fox, and then Desert Storm before that, and North Korea, right? What are the things? We hit Iraq and we didn't hit North Korea. North Korea crossed the asymmetric deterrence threshold defined as possession of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons. Yeah. So, I mean, that's again why they have to go, right? Because they're not going to give that up. They already know they're done, right? I could say with a very high degree of probability, there's a very high degree of human certainty. There's a very high degree of probability that the Mullah regime is dead, no matter what. Yeah. Right?
Okay, but that option doesn't seem to be on the table because of Trump just bombed your major uranium enrichment facility.
Remember when I said it? You're not wrong. Remember when I said there is non-traditional approaches towards obtaining fissile grade material? That's actually also I talked about Silex or exogenous refining your uranium, or just giving you whole turnkey systems, whether it's nuclear weapons or more frighteningly other types of WMDs, say racially targeted synthetic, biology-based bioweaponry. That's even worse than nuclear weapons.
How long would that take for you to prepare that if that was
synthetic
right now the Islamic Republic? Huh?
Synthetic bioweaponry, like advanced bioweapons, very, very quickly. Deadly. So one of the reasons why we engaged in things like the war on terror, I'll use a case study of this, and this actually kind of ties into why the Mullah regime is such a threat. So right after the terrorist attack of September 11th, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this person. Her name was Afa Siddiqui. So a lot of people, they don't know about her, right? So Afa Siddiqui, sometimes known by her moniker Lady or Dr. Al-Qaeda. And the reason that Afa Siddiqui, well, she was also referred to by the FBI and the CIA as the most dangerous woman in the world. So why? Why did they say that? Afa Siddiqui, not a dumb lady, radical Islamicist, born to radical Muslim fundamentalists in America that were of Pakistani descent. 9/11 kicks off. She got a full ride to MIT for biotech. She drops out of MIT. She goes overseas to Afghanistan with the stated goal of leveraging her skill set to develop racially targeted bioweaponry to target the racial demographics in the West. So we went out and grabbed her. Why is it that Afa Siddiqui was considered the most dangerous woman in the world? Was it the asymmetric nature of her alternative attack methodology, like bioweaponry? Yeah, partly. It's that it's easily repeatable. And this is like in 2000, early aughts. If you wanted to make a nuclear weapon, you needed a lot of money and big, large infrastructure to produce nuclear weapons. This is not, of course, taking into account things like Silix. With advanced bioweaponry, you just need an average biologist and a bad dream. That becomes even more dangerous when you enter the world of today, where you have democratized supercomputing, synthetic biology, and mirrored life, and easily obtainable genetic sequencers and all that stuff. I actually wrote a report about that in part underwrote the risk assessment for AI being misused to do that. Like I said, the Mullah regime has to go.
Do you think they're doing that right now as we speak, given that that's the most rational thing to do?
Potentially. That's the other thing, though, right? Because it has such a low signature. The time is you may not know.
And if you have that, what would you do with it to scare the world?
What China, all the planes China was sending over, could they be contributing to something like that?
That was one of the concerns I and some others sent up the chain.
So actually, you are who's on our list next. Go ahead.
I was going to circle back to the issues regarding terminology and libertarianism and all that. That seems like, that's tabled and gone. So again, the bad part of the good, bad, and ugly. So the good part was Donald very much disrupted the Mullah regime's traditional approach towards obtaining nuclear weapons. And he did so both to save Israel and to save like Iranian people who would have been caught in the crossfire. The bad is that the Mullah regime has any number of alternative means to reconstitute that capability very quickly. You talked about breakout, right? This, like the Russians want to have breakout capability. That's true. That said, because of the operational impact of those technologies going on and on and on, breakout capabilities now measured in maybe a couple days to a week. No longer measured in months. That's why, like, when the Mullah regime is like, well, you cannot kill the technology even if you destroy the facility. Yeah, that's great. That's why we kill the people that want it, because that's the only sustainable, given the operational impact as given those technologies and the inelasticity of the Mullah regime's pursuit of WMDs, the only effective approach towards counterproliferation that I can see is that the regime has to go, whether they're taken out in a strike or if they want to leave, go and leave. Hopefully Donald gives them that choice. Look, mullahs, you have two choices in the next 24 hours. Get the hell out, or I bomb you into oblivion, right? Like, and then, either they pull an Assad and go to like Moscow and then be used as, I don't know what the hell Putin's doing with Assad, or they get obliterated. Either way, the Mullah regime, if the issue is ensuring the Mullah regime does not get nuclear weapons of mass destruction, and the means to mass deliver them, they have to not exist inside Iran. They have to go.
Okay, for the remainder of our list, we have Heidi and Dijal.
Hi, yeah, that's actually, Jeffrey, that's a good point, because I often think nuclear weapons aren't the worst weapons. Biological weapons definitely are, especially with the proliferation for the last, 15 years of the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. That's going on all over the world, which is a little scary. I think it was Shauna that asked about the war fatigue and the mood in the United States. I think it's been at least a decade that both sides have had this fatigue, because there's two things that there was broad agreement on, and this is a time when we're really divided in the United States. But the two things that there was broad agreement on: withdrawal from Afghanistan and better relations with Russia. Both Obama and Trump had that on their campaign platforms. So that doesn't happen too often in the United States. And then I wanted to say regarding parity, again, Jeffrey's right. We have overwhelming superiority in the United States in most areas. The two areas that we really don't is, again, going back to the industrial base. The United States does not have an ability to manufacture things like artillery quickly. Russia has 3 times the manufacturing capacity that Europe and the United States have combined. So that's huge, because you can have all the weapon systems in the world, but you have to make the bombs, you have to make the artillery. And then the one area that I suspect will catch up pretty quick, but the United States, at least they have not said, does not have hypersonic missiles. And so far, most of the platforms that we were developing have ended up being failures. There's a new one coming out this year, as a matter of fact, in the spring. So maybe that'll bring us back to parity with Russia. But just to kind of give you an idea as to where we are, the United States has overwhelming superiority, especially in the air and in most areas. But we do have some weaknesses, and those are the weaknesses.
Jeffrey, do you want to respond to that? Because I think you are the best person.
She's not wrong regarding production of artillery and basic munitions. That's because of the peace dividend and consolidation, all that. There's a reason that Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has done what he did. So as far as hypersonics are concerned, I know Putin likes to sit there and talk about, oh, you do not have hypersonics. That's like, what's his name, who habitual line crosser. Putin's hypersonics suck, and they're very much a contemporary version of what we did in the 50s. So like we have our hypersonic Kinzhal missile. Hello? So that's very much just a short-range ballistic missile that's strapped underneath a aircraft and fired horizontally. Also, the way that Putin and Xi define hypersonics is a missile that reaches hypersonic speed read over Mach 5 in any part of its trajectory. True hypersonic missiles means you are hypersonic in your terminal and approach phase, which they don't have, including the Orishnik.
All right.
Finally, Dijal.
Heidi's right about the industrialization. We have to reindustrialize our nation. It's of vital importance. To get back to the whole isolationist thing, by the way, Shauna, that isocuck description, that's brilliant. I'm going to use that from now on. When it comes to that attitude, there were so many. The problem is that there were so many fuck ups in the year, in the both the Bush and Obama years. You had Iraq was fucked up. You had Libya. You had Obama endorsing the Muslim Brotherhood, throwing Mubarak under the bus. The Iranian deal he tried to do. It's just like everybody was very gun shy, and everybody was like, our government can't do anything right. So what you had was a knee jerk reaction where people just didn't really want to do anything at all, and that's led to its own issues as well. Because again, not all interventions are created equally, and having that kind of black and white thinking can be very dangerous. Trump is very different because he's been called an isolationist, but he really isn't. He's not a neocon, he's not a Wilsonian, but he's also not a paleocon isolationist or Buchananite. He's a Jacksonian or a Jeffersonian even. He believes he's like me. He's a nationalist. He doesn't care much for international institutions. I don't either. We believe we're America first. We don't believe in trying to save the entire world, but there are times where we have to impose our will upon the world. And whether it was Soleimani or bombing the Iranian nuclear sites, that's what you got to do. But that's the thing. Like, he colors outside the lines. He's not. He doesn't fit inside the traditional. And a lot of people, he's very unpredictable. But I would say that his views are very close to mine as far as all that goes. He's a different breed.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Digital. That was actually very interesting.
Eric gave a
You
triple
wanna-
tap or so I think he wants to comment here, but we're cutting it off after that. Okay, everybody?
Okay.
Am I on? Can you
Yes,
hear
you
me?
are. Yes,
Hey,
yes.
hey, I just, like to go back on America's Constitution or whatever. But I think one thing to help, we should remember back in the Magna Carta, where we have the king had to get along with the ruling elites. See, now, I'm not suggesting anything of a revolt, but I'm just saying, when I'm looking at Iranian politics, I think we need to focus on who is going to be helping King Reza Pahlavi when he comes to power. Who are the oligarchs in here? Are we going to be able to get these guys, these industrial people, to come in and support the king? See, we all know the history of the Magna Carta and what it's about, but a lot of this stuff, I think we got to be careful of who is going to replace the Ayatollah, these mullahs, when they go down. And it's good to be here. I'll be with you guys, but if you guys can pick up a little bit, I think King Reza Pahlavi, meeting with Trump and asking him questions about, hey, can you help us and stuff? Because one way to appeal to Trump is to ask him for help, And I really think, I really like to know. I mean, Marco Rubio, these guys are a little indeterminate on who they support. But I'll leave you guys there.
So 2 points regarding what you said. So in Iran, we don't have any oligarchs left other than the IRGC, because the IRGC has completely destroyed our private sector. So we don't have a functioning, strong private sector. Anybody that is rich is part of IRGC. Anybody who's like really like big industrial people that are making a lot of money is part of IRGC. So we cannot like we there's no we have to actually build our private sector from the bottom up once we get rid of the IRGC. That's one point. Another point is regards to Trump. My understanding is that Prince Reza Pahlavi's team and Trump administration are communicating and are in touch with each other, but they cannot make it that the communication public, because the Iranian revolution needs to remain Iranian, and they don't want to give out the image that Prince Reza Pahlavi has been handpicked by the Americans to be the leader of the Iranian people, because he's not. He's been chosen by the Iranian people. But they want to avoid giving that impression that America is choosing Iranian leaders for them. But Iraq, you wanted to respond to that because I saw you raise your hand.
I was just going to point out, with this collapse of all your finance people, I mean, I realize how many of them, all this ministry, their deep state and all this ministry stuff that goes on here. You guys got to take more than just the mullahs down, see? And I didn't realize how serious you guys this problem is. Without some of these, I mean, I just use the term oligarch loosely. I'm just referring to people in positions of power, generally speaking.
Yeah. In Iran, there is no way to be in power unless you're with the IRGC. They have basically made it impossible for anyone else to be in power.
That's going to be a serious change to bring that down.
Yeah, and this is why, say you have to take more than the mullahs down. This is why the Iranian people in the streets chant death to the three corruptions. They say Mag bar Fasid, Mullah Chapi Mujahid. So this is one of the chants of the Iranian people in the streets. They say death to the three corruptions: the mullahs, the leftists, and the MEK. So they're trying to bring more than the mullahs down.